In the 1930s, Japan's military aggression began to reveal a pattern of structured brutality. In China, for instance, the 1937 Nanking Massacre stands as undeniable evidence that Japanese forces massacred thousands of civilians and prisoners of war. Meanwhile, in the Philippines, the Bataan Death March showed how American and Filipino soldiers were forced to march under appalling conditions, pushed to extreme exhaustion, and tortured. In a bid for power expansion, the assault on Singapore in early 1942 marked a strategic shift in Japan's military operations toward Southeast Asia. Following the British surrender of Singapore on February 15, 1942, Allied prisoners were swiftly moved to Changi for internment. Since the British-built Changi Prison was already jam-packed with Allied POWs and civilians, nearby barracks, including Selarang Barracks, were repurposed by the Japanese as detention centers for Australian and British prisoners. As the year progressed, the escape attempt by a few prisoners became a notable episode. 4 prisoners, Corporal Rodney Brevington and Private Victor Gale from the Australian, along with Private Harold Waters from the East Surrey Regiment and Private Eric Fletcher from the Royal Army, tried to break free from Japanese control. Although this bold move ultimately ended in recapture, it spurred General Shinpei Fukuye to crack down hard to prevent future escapes. The general ordered all prisoners to sign a pledge not to escape, a clear violation of the rights enshrined in the Geneva Convention. The prisoners' refusal led to the decision to transfer around 15,000 people, including a large number of British POWs from Changi, to Selarang Barracks on August 30, 1942. Originally designed to house between 800 and 1,200 individuals, the barracks were forced to accommodate a crowd that was way over capacity. Without any certainty about how long the relocation would last, or if a return was even possible, the soldiers quickly gathered every personal belonging they could carry to Selarang. The move happened so fast that the barracks became ridiculously overcrowded. Many prisoners had no choice but to crash in emergency tents set up in the square, all because there just wasn't enough room. Things went from bad to worse when the Japanese cut off the water supply to the toilets, sparking serious sanitation nightmares. By the end of day 1, dysentery was already making its unwelcome debut. Requests to transfer sick prisoners to a hospital were flat out rejected, so the disease spread like wildfire. Even as everything kept going downhill, the prisoners stood firm, refusing to sign the imposed agreement. This critical state pushed authorities to roll out additional emergency measures. With sanitation facilities in short supply, the prisoners were forced to dig trenches on the parade ground to serve as latrines. Despite the sweltering heat, only 2 water taps were working, leaving each prisoner with a measly 1 liter of water per day for drinking and bathing. Scarcity of rations and supplies only added insult to injury. Even firewood was so scarce that barrack doors had to be demolished to fuel the kitchen stove. Then, to top it all off, the Japanese cranked up the pressure by threatening a total water cutoff and slashing rations in half, a move that further wrecked the prisoners' living conditions. General Fukuye's reaction to the stalemate at Selarang was marked by an intensification of repressive measures. In response to the recapture of 4 prisoners who had previously attempted to escape, he ordered their execution on September 2nd. The executions were carried out by a firing squad composed of guards from the Indian National Army, using rifles. This action was taken to serve as a deterrent and to prevent further escape attempts, even though the prisoners consistently refused to sign the imposed agreement. At the same time, conditions in the Selarang Barracks continued to deteriorate due to shortages of food, clean water, and sanitary facilities. The high density of occupants and the lack of proper medical care led to an increase in cases of dysentery and diphtheria. Following these repressive measures, the worsening conditions prompted further action on September 4th. The crowded environment and inadequate sanitation resulted in many prisoners falling ill. In response to this emergency, Colonel E.B. Holmes, commander of the British and Australian forces at Changi, issued an official order requiring all prisoners to sign a pledge not to escape by no later than 11 a.m. the following day. On September 5, 1942, Colonel E.B. Holmes felt it was his duty to take decisive action to safeguard the health and well-being of the prisoners. The implementation of this order elicited an interesting response from the prisoners. Many of them chose to use pseudonyms when signing the document. Many prisoners signed with false names, with Ned Kelly, the legendary Australian outlaw, being a popular choice. After the signing process was completed, all the prisoners were returned to their original barracks. However, after Japan's surrender in 1945, global attention turned to holding those responsible for the human rights violations during the occupation accountable. Lieutenant General Shinpei Fukuei was subsequently found guilty for ordering the execution of 4 prisoners of war. On April 7, 1946, Fukuei was executed by firing at the same location where the 4 prisoners had been executed.